I don't know where I'd heard this before, being left out, or having your existence denied. I used to think tragedies only happened in novels, until I became the uninvited side character in my own story. That night, I wore the red dress Mom once said really brings out your eyes, and stood frozen like a stranger outside her 65th birthday party. Inside, people were toasting and laughing while I stood there, clutching the gift I'd spent a week choosing, and heard my father say something that chilled me to the bone. "You're not on the list, Aria. Your mother doesn't want to see you tonight." Seattle's winter wind had never cut so deep. I was 35, the middle child in a family of 3, and I had just been blocked by my own father from entering my mother's milestone celebration. Through the large glass window, I saw my sister Natalie, glowing in a lilac dress, standing beside Mom, wine glass in hand. My younger brother Kevin was laughing with a circle of old family friends, as if nothing had happened. No one noticed me standing outside. No one came to open the door. "There must be some mistake," I stammered, trying to hold it together. "I called Mom just last week and told her I was coming." My father didn't look up from the guest list. His voice was firm, low. "The list was finalized last month. If you really mattered to your mother, your name would be here." I stepped back, the gift in my hand suddenly twice as heavy. A guest brushed past me with a confused glance. I heard Natalie's laugh from inside. Once it belonged to both me and Mom. Now, it was just a blade slicing through my ribs. I didn't come to cause drama. I just wanted to say, "Happy birthday, Mom." But even that, something so simple, was no longer meant for me. They always say, family is where love is unconditional. I used to believe that, until I grew up in a house where love was rationed by rank. Natalie was the pride of the family, always photographed, always praised. Kevin was the golden baby, whose smallest sneeze sent Mom into a frenzy like a nuclear warning. And me? I was the blur in the family photo. If I was even fully in the frame, usually half hidden behind the birthday cake. "You can't wear that dress, it looks wrinkled," Mom told me when I was 10, while Natalie twirled in a custom outfit Mom had specially ordered. "You gotta be average? I guess you're okay with mediocrity," was Dad's response to my report card, while Kevin just had to pass a class to get applause. I remember the only time I was the center of attention in our living room was when I spilled wine on the Persian rug. Mom's glare, it was like I had set the house on fire. "You never think before you act, Aria," she screamed. And I wished, God, I wished, that scream had been a compliment. In those moments I'd flee to the rooftop, the only place without cameras or commands like, "Quiet, your sister's studying." I'd sit there, listening to the traffic below, imagining a city where no one knew my name, so no one could ignore it. On my birthdays, Mom usually forgot, or remembered but didn't plan anything. Excuses were too busy, not convenient, or why not combine it with Kevin's to save money? Meanwhile, Natalie's parties had MCs, backdrops, even dancers. I didn't ask for much, just a simple question. "Did you have a good day?" No one ever asked. One day I taped a note to my bedroom wall. "Aria, I exist." Kevin tore it down, laughing like I'd told a bad joke. Natalie looked at me with pity. "You're just being dramatic because you can't accept that you're not special." "Not special? Maybe. But who needs to be special when you're not even acknowledged as real?" I started counting down from 17. Just get through this last summer and I'd leave the house where dreams were smothered before they could even speak. I chose a university nearly 2,500 miles from Seattle, New York University. Not because of scholarships, not for prestige, but because it was the farthest I could go without being accused of running away. "New York?" Dad narrowed his eyes. "So you're leaving the family for some meaningless degree?" I said nothing, because if I opened my mouth I'd scream. Mom just sighed. "That far. Are you sure you'll be okay?" I'd been okay all those years, without comfort, without anyone asking, "Are you all right?" So why couldn't I be okay now? The day I left, I packed everything into 2 battered suitcases and a bag with a broken strap. No one drove me to the airport. Natalie posted a story about coffee with her friends. Kevin was still asleep. Mom sent a 4-word text. Safe travels. No period. New York was loud, chaotic, cold. But to me, it looked like freedom. I moved into an apartment the size of a shoebox, with 3 roommates I'd never met. We shared toilet paper rolls and boiled instant noodles with an electric kettle. And yet, I'd never felt more seen. Majored in digital media, at first because I liked to write. Then I discovered I had a knack for turning messy ideas into clear campaigns. My professor once said I had the mind of a logistical genius. I almost cried in the bathroom after class. Not because of the compliment, but because someone finally saw me as capable. I interned at a tiny startup at 21. 3 years later, I was content strategy lead for a global brand. No one back home knew. No one asked. Still, I sent gifts every holiday. Still, I called on Mom's birthday, even when Natalie hijacked the call, or Mom brushed me off with, "I'm busy, call back later." And I understood I wasn't part of their story anymore. But here, where I'd built everything from scratch, I finally had what I'd longed for my whole childhood. A place that was mine. I thought 2,500 miles would bring peace. I was wrong. Every holiday I flew back to Seattle. I brought gifts, cookies, and a foolish hope that this time would be different. But every time, I walked into that old house and was shoved back into my old role, the outsider. Last Thanksgiving was the last straw. Mom called me a week prior. Are you coming home? Natalie's planned everything. I don't want to disrupt the flow." Disrupt? What does that mean? I mean, never mind. If you're busy, don't force it. I went anyway, even though they sat me at the kids' table, even though Kevin brought a new girlfriend and no one introduced me. I sat, smiling stiffly, chewing that family dinner like paper. After dinner, I was in the kitchen washing dishes when Natalie walked in, wine glass in hand. Her voice was a cocktail of pity and disdain. "I didn't think you'd show. Thought you were too caught up in your New York life." "I'm still part of this family, Nat." "Really? Because you show up like a VIP guest, just for appearances." I dropped the towel, turned to face her. "If I'm a guest, it's because you all treat me like one. For 15 years. Natalie scoffed, eyes sharp. "You're just good at running away, can't handle not being the center of attention." "No," I replied, voice trembling. "I can't handle being treated like I'm the problem, every damn time." I thought Mom would step in, but she just stood there, still holding the pan, staring at me like I was a stranger. Not a single word. That day, I left the dinner early. I walked away from the table, from Mom's cold silence, and from the belief that maybe I should try a little harder one more time. On the flight back to New York, I sat by the window, watching the city lights shrink below. And I realized one thing. Distance can't save a relationship if the people left behind need you to feel guilty for leaving. I tried to stay connected. But some things, the tighter you hold, the faster they fall apart. I found out I had officially been cut off from the family thanks to a Facebook event. That night, it was almost 1 a.m. I was sitting in my office on the 17th floor of a building in Manhattan, the only light on in a sea of dark windows. I had only opened my laptop to check emails, but accidentally clicked an open Facebook tab. And then I saw it. Patricia Walker, 65 Years of Love. The cover photo was of my mother in an emerald dress, standing in a garden decorated with lanterns and white flowers. Beneath it was the caption, "A special evening to honor the woman who held us all together as a family." I don't know how long I sat frozen. My hands were ice cold, the cursor hovering over the interested button like some cruel joke. The guest list popped up. Mom's college best friend. Invited. Relatives from Arizona. Invited. The old neighbor who had a loud dog for 3 years. Invited. My name? Not there, not anywhere. I immediately called my mother. She picked up after 3 rings. "Arya, what's wrong? It's so late." "What's wrong?" I tried not to choke on my words. I just saw your birthday party on Facebook. A full-blown celebration I wasn't invited to. Oh, that. I thought you were busy. Natalie said so. Thought? I'm your daughter, not some assistant you need to schedule time with. Silence. A suffocating pause. Swallowed. Both ends of the line. I'm sorry if you felt left out. Not if, Mom. I was left out. Deliberately. I hung up. My heart pounded like a drum inside my chest. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just sat there, in that unfamiliar office, and suddenly, the entire world felt foreign. The next day, I booked a one-way ticket to Seattle. No announcement, no warning. I was going to that party. Not to attend. To confront. If they planned to erase me from the family portrait, then I'd be the one redrawing the frame. I had never prepared so carefully for a party I wasn't invited to. A black dress, subtle enough not to seem petty, bold enough to send a message. I didn't come here to blend in. I arrived early, stood outside the garden, watching people pour in like a river. Laughter, clinking glasses, and the old song Mom used to love drifted from inside. On the backdrop, "Happy 65th, Mom," in shimmering gold. As I approached the front gate, a stranger holding a clipboard stopped me. "Excuse me, your name?" "Aria Walker." He scanned the list, then looked up. "You're not on the list, ma'am." That voice, cold and unfamiliar, could have been copied straight from my father. I took a step back. Not out of shock, but because the fury had risen to my throat. Just then, a side door creaked open. It was him, Jake, Natalie's new boyfriend. His eyes locked on mine. "Aria?" He raised an eyebrow. "You're..." "Yes." I clutched my purse tightly. "And I want to see my mother." "You weren't invited?" he asked, glancing away. "It's an invitation to see my own mother," I said, my voice sharp as glass. He hesitated, then gave a slow nod. "Come with me. Side entrance." We moved through a quiet pathway, avoiding the main crowd. Everything inside was painfully perfect. Twinkling lights, fresh flowers, rows of chairs like a wedding, and there she was, my mother, laughing beside Natalie. I stepped forward. No more hiding. "Mum." The room fell silent as if someone had pulled the plug on the music. All eyes turned toward me. My mother turned around, eyes wide. "Why are you? Why are you?" "Where am I a surprise?" I cut in, my voice firmer than I expected. "I'm your daughter, and you had no idea I was left off the guest list?" I turned to Natalie. "You lied. You told Mom I declined, that I was too busy, that I didn't care, when I never said any of that." Natalie's face flushed. She tried to stay calm. "You're making a scene, Aria. This is Mom's birthday, not your stage." "No, you're the one who turned this into a script," I interrupted. "You wrote the villain role, cast me as the absentee, and told everyone I chose to stay away." Jake stepped closer, staring at Natalie like something had just clicked. "You really did that?" The air thickened. My mother set down her wine glass and walked toward us. "Aria, is that true?" I nodded, said nothing. I just handed her the message I saved from our last call, the one I thought was enough. Her eyes scanned the screen. Then she looked at Natalie, really looked at her, for the first time in years. "Way would you do that to your sister?" Natalie backed away, then turned around and walked off, silent. Jake pulled out his phone and quietly left the room. Truth doesn't need to shout to be heard. It only needs one moment of courage. And I had chosen the right one to step in. The room stayed silent after Natalie left, but I knew this silence wasn't an end. It was the beginning of everything my family had never dared to say. Mom turned to me, her hand still slightly trembling. "Aria, since you're here, then say it. Say everything. I don't want to keep hiding." I looked around. Familiar faces from my childhood, my aunt, my kindergarten teacher, Mom's best friend, were watching me with curiosity, confusion, and something that looked like regret. I took a deep breath and began. "I didn't come here to ruin the party. I came because I was erased from the guest list and from this family, and I can't stay silent anymore. I turned to Natalie. You built a story where I was cold, detached, too busy to care. But the truth is, you were afraid I'd come back, because I'm living proof of everything you've tried to deny. Arya, you think you're the victim? Natalie shot back, her voice sharp and full of fury. I stayed. I took care of our parents. I carried everything. And you? You got to live your perfect New York life. And now you show up like you're some kind of saint. No, I said firmly. I'm not perfect, I'm just different. I don't have to scream to be loved. I don't manipulate people's emotions to get praise. I turned to the others in the room, not flinching. For years, I've called. I've sent gifts for every occasion, but only one person has controlled the flow of information, and that's Natalie. Every time Mom missed me, she told her I was indifferent. Every time I tried to get closer, she built walls out of lies fed to our parents. Natalie trembled. Mom, you can't believe everything she says. I'm the one here. I take care of you every day. Mom raised her hand, cutting her off. Her voice was soft but colder than I'd ever heard it. And you used that to twist everything to your advantage? Natalie fell silent. Her eyes glittered with anger, but this time she had no allies. Jake had vanished. My father stood still, face flushed, but said nothing. For the first time, he let the conversation unfold without imposing control. A voice came from the back of the room. It was Aunt Margot. I always wondered why Ari was never around. Now I understand. Eyes shifted. Murmurs rippled across the room like waves. Once spoken, the truth has a force more powerful than any blow. Natalie stepped back, left with nothing to hold on to. I walked over to my mother, my voice lowered. I didn't come here to reclaim a place. I just wanted to be seen for who I truly am. Mom took my hand. For the first time in years, without a guide, without explanation, she understood. And I'm sorry, she said, eyes brimming, for letting this happen without seeing clearly. After everything was said, the birthday party no longer felt like a celebration. It became a space to reflect and begin again. Mom gently squeezed my hand, her eyes still moist, and I saw something I thought I'd never find again. Understanding. Arya? I've misunderstood your voice for too long, she whispered. And I let someone else rewrite our story. I didn't know what to say. Part of me wanted to cry like the little girl left alone in the schoolyard. The other part stood still, afraid that speaking might shatter this fragile moment. Natalie stayed silent. She sat alone at the party table, eyes drawn inward like a closed shell. I didn't hate her. I never had. I was just tired of playing the role of intruder in my own family. Mom looked around the room, then spoke clearly to everyone. Sorry for the disruption. But today, I don't just want to celebrate a birthday. I want to start over. The entire room fell still. For years, I let silence stretch into cracks. And now, when I see my daughter brave enough to walk into a place where no one expected her, I know this is the time to heal. My father stood up, still stiff, but his voice had changed. I was biased, I admit it. I thought Arya didn't need anyone. Turns out, I just didn't have the courage to ask what she needed. I looked at him, stunned. The same man who shut me out at the gate now looked at me, not with blame, but something closer to regret. I nodded slightly, just that small gesture, and yet my heart felt as if I'd just shed a suit of armor I'd worn for years. Natalie stood up. Slowly, step by step, she walked toward me, for the first time in years without wearing a mask. I hated you, she said, her voice cracking, because you got to leave, and I stayed. I was here every day with Mom, but she still keeps that third-place certificate of yours in her drawer. I froze. Every time I saw her look at it, I felt like I'd always be the shadow. I didn't know whether to hug her or hold my distance, but in the end, I just said, "You're not a shadow, Nat. You've just been living in a room with the windows locked." For the first time, she cried. Not loud, dramatic sobs, but a quiet unraveling, the kind I knew too well. We didn't hug. We didn't need to. But I knew the distance between us just got a little smaller. Mom turned to everyone. We're going to seek family therapy. If anyone has recommendations, let us know. This isn't the end, it's a fresh draft. And when the room applauded, not loudly, not awkwardly, I knew a fracture had started to mend. Not with apologies, but with real action. I returned to New York like someone stepping out of a storm. No one saw the battles still echoing inside me as I rolled my suitcase through the airport terminal. I was still Aria, director of strategic communications at a global firm, a woman with back-to-back meetings. But inside, I knew I wasn't the same version of myself. A few days later, in a senior leadership meeting, our CEO, Camilla Prescott, glanced at me after I challenged finance's approach. "Aria," she said, tilting her head, "what's new with you?" I gave a small smile. I recently faced a very difficult confrontation, but I learned something crucial. Sometimes you have to speak up, even when your voice shakes. The room fell silent for 2 full breaths. Then Camilla nodded. "Then bring that energy into the Singapore campaign. From today forward, it's yours." I walked out of that meeting, stunned. The Singapore project was a 5-year strategic pillar, an opportunity everyone had been eyeing. I'd prepared with all the skills and knowledge I had, and now, with a kind of courage forged in my own family, I told Rachel, my assistant, as she handed me my usual coffee, "You've deserved that role for a long time, Aria. I used to think I had to push harder, be perfect, stay silent to be recognized," I said. "Turns out, only when I took off the mask did people finally see the real strength in me." Rachel looked at me, more serious than usual. "You should share that with the interns. They need to hear it from someone like you." That comment stuck with me. That night I emailed HR proposing a mentorship program for younger staff, not just about career skills but about self-worth and learning how to set boundaries with the things that hurt. I called it Voice: The Journey to Reclaim Your Voice. And not long after, I was invited to another meeting with Camilla, this time to discuss a new position, Vice President of Global Communications. "We don't just look at performance, Aria," Camilla said. "We look for leaders who speak the truth, even when it's uncomfortable. And you've shown that, at work and in your life." I sat there, my heart pounding, unable to hold back a smile. I texted my mother right after the meeting. "I've just been nominated for VP. I wanted you to be the first to know." A minute later she replied, "I always knew you'd soar. I just regret it took me so many years to see it clearly." I didn't want to cry in the office, but my vision blurred. Not because of the title, but because I had finally received what I'd been waiting for all those years. Recognition born from real love. 3 months after that turbulent birthday party, my mother set foot in New York. For the first time in 15 years, she left Seattle to visit a city she had only known through the postcards I sent. When I saw her at the airport gate, carrying a small suitcase, eyes shining behind her sunglasses, it felt like the past and present were finally merging into one. "Are you tired, Mom?" I asked, taking her luggage. "Just a racing heart," she smiled. "Must be the nerves." I took her on a walk through Manhattan, the little cafe under the trees where I usually worked, the old bookstore I'd loved since the day I arrived in New York, even the rooftop where I once sat and cried, feeling like the world had forgotten I existed. She listened to everything I said, no interruptions, no judgment, just quiet listening. That night, we sat in my apartment, soft light spilling over the dinner table. She looked around and said, "You built all of this from nothing. On your own. And I'm sorry for not being there when you needed me most." I placed my hand over hers. "You're here now. That's enough." The next afternoon I brought her to my office. When she entered the conference room and met my colleagues, she was surprised by the respect and warmth in their eyes when they addressed me. Arya is someone who never lets injustice linger, Rachel told her, whether it's in strategy or how she treats people. My mother's eyes welled up. You've really grown up. When I took her to the airport on her last day, she held my hand tightly at the security gate. This trip showed me that you don't have to be close by to still be family. But I still want to be closer to you. I smiled and hugged her tightly. Next time you come, we'll walk along the Hudson. Did you bring your sneakers? I'll bring both my sneakers and a new heart, she whispered. As she disappeared behind the security checkpoint, I stood there for a long time. I once left this place with a broken heart, but today I stood there, steady, whole, and no longer needing to prove anything to anyone. Not everyone gets the chance to rewrite an old chapter. I did. And now, I'm writing the next one with my own hands. And I'm not letting anyone else hold the pen. My story isn't just about reclaiming a voice in a family that once turned its back on me. It's proof that truth has the power to heal when we dare to face it. I used to think leaving was the only way to survive, but it was when I returned, with courage and self-respect, that I truly began to live. No one can define your worth except you. And sometimes, to begin a new chapter, the first thing you need to do is put a period on the last one. What do you think about Arya's journey? Have you ever experienced something similar? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to follow the channel so you won't miss more heartfelt and honest stories about family life.